Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders taking the country by storm, promising to empower the middle class with a political revolution. But the cost of his proposed economic plan, estimated in the trillions of dollars. Sanders joins Fox News Sunday to shed some light on his ideas. Listen to this.
We're talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next several years. We're talking about pay equity for women. We're talking about creating millions of decent paying jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. We are talking about focusing on the outrageously high rate of youth unemployment in the African American community. We are talking about having the United States join the rest of the industrialized world, guaranteeing health care to all, making tuition at public colleges and universities free.
Joining us now is Brenberg. He is Associate Professor of Business and Economics at the King's College. Good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
So a lot of stuff there. Huh? It sounds really good. Free college, free health care, wages higher, pay up for everybody.
Yeah.
How's he going to pay for it?
$18 trillion in spending over the next 10 years, and he really doesn't have a plan to pay for it. His tax plan that he released, he claims he wants to tax the rich. He's got about $10 billion worth of taxes there. So you've got a gap of $4 to $8 trillion, depending on how you count the spending. He says he's going to tax the rich to pay for this. He can't do it. It has to be a tax on the middle class. I don't think his supporters understand how much the middle class is going to have to be taxed to pay for this.
This is really the point that we make all the time. I mean, the tax story, I'm not sure if all of these young people understand what 92% tax rates is. He said 92% tax rate, not off the table for Bernie Sanders. And when you say the rich, what is the rich? $200,000 in income?
Yeah, he's talking about $200,000 and $250,000 in income. But again, they're just not going to be able to pay for this. Look, I think the problem with millennials especially is they think if you tax the rich, they're just going to have to sit there and take it. But of course, we know that when people are taxed this way, they respond, they change their behavior. So you're not going to get the revenue that you're thinking about. You're going to have these big budget deficits that we're worried about. You pile that on top of an already deteriorating budget situation in the U.S., you have big problems. I just don't think young people understand how much they're on the hook for.
I think when we're talking about this, we should always say tax those people making $200,000 or more. Because when you say tax the rich, it sounds like you're talking about Warren Buffett with $35 or $40 billion. People should understand what 92% of their $200,000 salary means.
Well, and that's not only just 92%, but it's also, you've got to think about even city taxes here. So, I mean, think about New York. If you're making $200,000 and the federal government's taking 92%.
You're working for the government.
Yeah, and then you have the municipalities and the state governments. You're literally, you know what it does? It disincentivizes you from working. And then I want to go onto the dole. I want to get on the welfare system. Government, give it to me. Give it to me.
Free stuff.
Yeah, give me free stuff. I love it. You know, but the problem here is too is that this is going to hit the middle class the most. The rich are going to be fine, right? They're going to be gone. It's fine.
They're not going to hire any workers because this is also going to touch small business. When you're talking about the rich and anybody with more than $200,000, what do you think they're going to do with that the remaining 8%? Think they're going to use that 8% to pay workers?
Also, how can you tax the rich and then create more jobs? Can you please explain that one to me? Maybe you can talk about that, how all of a sudden he's going to add 16 million jobs, but also tax the rich. Can you please
go ahead, Brian.
This is the problem. He's talking about taxing investment to the hilt, and on the other hand, he's talking about creating jobs. Those two things just don't go together. What this really is, what he's really talking about here is it's short-term redistributing what we have, but he's totally sacrificing the long-term. And it's interesting to look at young people looking at his campaign and saying, there's hope for the future here. No, 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 no. This is mortgaging the future to do something right now.
If they really believed in his vision, they only need to look at Europe. Europe has a 20% value-added tax on all goods and services that hits everybody. It hits the middle class, it hits lower class, and millionaires and billionaires choose not to live there for the most part. So they're not your tax base in Europe. It's everybody is your tax base. That's what's going to turn. That's what's going to happen.
Taxing the financial system. What are the impacts of that? Because listen, if you tax it, I think you shut it down, and then jobs are going nowhere. So we
look at Sweden, the financial transactions tax that Bernie Sanders wants to implement. We look at what happened in Sweden. The trading business just left. I mean, they just left. You go trade your instruments somewhere else. They didn't raise any revenue. They drove the business out, hurt their economy. Total lose-lose situation there.
Here's the issue. We're in this circus of an election. Bernie is getting all these voters by saying, oh, you're going to get everything for free. Now, if Hillary tries to turn him and say, that's impossible, it's impractical, boo, she's the tool of the rich. Now, if she faces that challenge, the Republican side may face that challenge in a general election. How do you fight that battle?
I actually think she's trying to do that right now. If you look at some of her more recent speeches, she's talking about, hey, look, we want job growth. We want a growing economy, and you can't pay for everything you're talking about, Senator Sanders. It's a tough sell for her, but she inherits one really big positive, and that is her husband's economic record in the 1990s, where the economy grew. Now, whether he deserves the credit or not is a different question, but she can build on that. You're starting to see her do that a little bit.
No, he deserves the credit. What my issue with what you're saying is the fact that she's really not mimicking her husband's economic plan. She's running all the way to the left.
Yeah. Well, it has been
So
she's been sort of a Bernie Sanders.
As Bill Clinton.
No, that's right. And I think that the changes that happen, it's been a Me Too strategy right now. But look, if you want to soak the rich, vote for Bernie Sanders. If you want to jack up minimum wage, vote for Bernie Sanders.
But also understand who you're talking about when you talk about the rich.
Yeah.
At $200,000 in income.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's very different than somebody with $40 billion.
No,
people need to understand that. And also, there's something aspirational about making $200,000. People need to also understand that. When you do climb the ladder and get to that number, 92% of it.
Bernie, this is a war on success. He really doesn't want people to be successful in this country. He wants the government to run our lives.
Well, he wants everything the same. And that's another thing that millennials need to understand and have a clear idea of what is socialism. Everybody's the same. It doesn't matter if you're Michael Jordan, that you're this tall, that you perhaps could get paid more because you're a better basketball player. No. Everybody's the same. Everybody's going to get the same.
Yeah. Well, this disincentivizes people, so maybe you want to talk about that, because I think actually if you cut taxes, that incentivizes people more to work harder, to actually produce more, which is better for the government, and they'll collect more taxes. Yeah,
you can't point to anything in Bernie Sanders' plan, certainly, but you really can't point to anything over the past 8 years that have been unambiguously pro-growth, right? We haven't had policies that have really incentivized investment, work, saving, hiring. That's the problem we have with Sanders' plan right now, but that's the problem we have with Clinton's plan as well. I agree with what you were saying earlier. So much of the tax increases are based on investment and work. That's exactly what you don't want to be doing in a slow-growth economy. We want to get out of the slow-growth economy. You cannot do what Sanders or Clinton are proposing right now.
Right, which is why we're all looking for a growth plan. Brian, good stuff. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Brian Brenberg there.